Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this webcast. My name is Pascal Komati, and I'm the Marketing Manager for LinkedIn Talent Solutions in the Middle East and North Africa. Today, I'm going to be covering the highlights of a research that LinkedIn ran in partnership with TNS Middle East, and that research was named The Talent Gap. It was launched in 2014 last year, but the report was actually finalized in 2015 this year in March. So some of you might have seen this in the press. Today, I would like to cover a couple of things. First of all, the study and the reason why we've done it and how we've done it. Then I'll dig into the results of the study. So I'm not going to go into too many details about it, but I am going to cover the recruiting landscape in those different markets, the labor market perception, and the approach to nationalization in the different countries, and finalizing with the skills analysis from an employer's perspective and a professional's perspective. So before we dig into the numbers, I wanted to let you to understand why we've done this study. So the reason why we've started this is because we saw that there is some sort of gap in the job market. So we're all familiar with what we call the law of supply and demand. We've all done it at school. We've all heard about it, and obviously the same thing should apply to the job market. So logically, the more jobs are created, the more candidates there are to fill those jobs, right? But that's not really the case, and it's not really the case not only in MENA but in everywhere in the world. So let's take, for example, the U.S. If you look at the U.S., there are over 8 million Americans today that are unemployed, and there's 4 million jobs that are unfilled. So you would think that all of these jobs that are unfilled can easily be filled by those 8 million unemployed people. But that's not the case, because these jobs require certain sets of skills that those professionals don't have. And it's important to identify what those skills are to be able to bridge that gap. So another important and interesting fact is youth unemployment. So today, worldwide, there's 337 million young people that are unemployed. And in this graph, I really want to focus on the number in the Middle East and North Africa. So as you can see, we're at 40%, which is the highest amongst all different continents. And this is something that is very interesting, because these young people are graduating every day with a set of skills, but they're not able to use them in the workplace today because there are no jobs that require those skills, or maybe they don't know what are the skills that are required for these jobs so that they can develop them at school. So this is the reason why we decided to launch this study and to understand what were the approaches that were taken by employers, what was it that they were looking for, and on the other hand, what was it that professionals were looking for, and where they were looking for these opportunities, and how we can bridge that gap step by step. Obviously, this is not something that we can do in one day, but this is something that can help shed the light on where the gap is. So just quickly about the survey, we actually partner with TNS Middle East. So they're part of the larger group of TNS, the research company. We focused on 3 different countries, the UAE, Saudi Arabia, and Qatar. And in each of these countries, we interviewed 100 talent acquisition leaders and 500 professionals. So the talent acquisition leaders were face-to-face meetings, and for the professionals, we did an online survey to be able to reach that number. So if you want to know more about who those professionals were, we had a good mix of citizens versus non-Arab expats and Arab expats. So the majority were citizens and Arab expats, but we had also a good mix with non-Arab expats. Also, the majority was aged from 25 to 34, so quite advanced in the job market. And current employment status was mainly currently employed, so currently working, and 29%, for example, in the UAE was unemployed, 14% in Saudi, and 13% in Qatar. So we also differentiated between passive and active candidates. So passive candidates are people that are currently working and they're happy at their job, but they're open to opportunities. And then active candidates are people that are actively looking for a job. So they're working, but they are unhappy in their position and they would like to move. Looking at talent acquisition leaders, we made sure that we're covering all different industries in all markets, but also different sizes of companies. So we had a good mix of small and medium size and large enterprises that were represented in this survey. So moving on to the most important part of the survey is the results. So there are 3 different themes to this survey. So the first one was looking at the recruitment methods that employers were using today and that professionals were using to find opportunities. So I'm going to start with the UAE, and this is basically how this webcast is going to be. I'm going to go into each country when it makes sense. So in here, if we look at the UAE, it's actually interesting because 70% of employers in the UAE are using recruitment agencies to advertise their openings. And then they use their company's website, and then the word of mouth is coming in 3rd position. So we looked at what employers are doing. Let's look at what professionals are using today. In the UAE, after updating their CV, the first thing that professionals do is go on their LinkedIn profile and update that and share it. So that was the top result. The second one was to send their resume to employers that they would like to work for. And then came other means like posting their resume on an online job board or searching the internet, submitting their resume to recruitment agencies. So actually recruitment agencies was coming in the 5th position. So there's clearly a gap in the ways that employers are looking for candidates and that candidates are using today to find opportunities. If I look at Saudi Arabia, we see the same kind of trend where the most used recruitment platform is the company's website for employers, but also newspapers and online career websites. And then professionals are actually using social professional networks again. Then they're using online job boards, internet, resumes to employers and then to recruitment agencies. So there's still a gap here in the Saudi Arabia market. And finally, in Qatar, you can see that companies are using their company's website for recruiting, but there's also a very heavy use of newspapers and magazines and online career websites, whereas professionals are using social professional networks to find opportunities. So what we're trying to say here is that overall there's a mismatch between where professionals are looking for opportunities and the channels that employers are using today. So companies have the need to move to an online approach. And if you're an employer in any of these countries, you're going to want to be where your candidates are, and your candidates are on social media, and they're on social professional networks. So this is the next step for us to start to bridge that gap and start to find those people in the right time and at the right place. So next up, we wanted to look at the perception of the labor market from a candidate's perspective, but also from an employer's perspective, and then dig into the nationalization piece very quickly. So let's look at what how employers perceive the labor market. So we asked them a couple of statements, and the most interesting one is that all employers in all 3 countries, the UAE, Saudi, and Qatar, they all agree that it's hard to find the right talent in their markets. They also agree that the process takes a lot of time and is quite expensive. But what is interesting is that they're not compromising on the quality of a hire just to fill the job. So this is a very good sign for candidates, and it's a very good sign for the job market, is that it's still very important to find the right person and not just to find someone to fill in a job. If I look at professionals' perception of the labor market, we asked them the same question, and actually the results were not that in line with what employers were mentioning in terms of if they would take on a job that wouldn't fit their skills, because most of them agree that some people are working at jobs that don't fit their skills and qualification. And actually, they might be interested to take on a job that doesn't fit their skills and qualification if the offered package is good. So this is important for employers to look out for in the recruitment process. Hiring someone for the wrong reasons can impact a person's performance, their results in the long run, and it's very important to ensure that they're not joining you just because the package is good, but because they're motivated to work in the company and they want to work for you and not the other way around. So I just wanted to highlight that part because it's important to see that sometimes employers are looking at something and then it's completely different from a professional's point of view. So we all know what nationalization is, and here I wanted to cover it in a very, one slide about how employers are actually using nationalization in their hiring strategies. And it's very interesting because in the UAE, for example, we see that 72% of employers are not targeting nationals proactively. In Qatar, the situation is a bit better, but still 53% of employers are not targeting nationals. There's only in Saudi that we can see employers are proactively targeting nationals in their hiring strategy. So what's the reason why today the UAE and Qatar are not proactively looking for these candidates? There's a couple of reasons why this is happening. First, it could be that they're just not finding the right people, right? So they could be, searching for them, but they're just not finding them in the right way. It's easy to put someone in a job, but it's not easy to find a person that has the skills that you want, is a company fit, culturally fit, and is a national. So it's quite a lot of requirements for one job. Another reason could be that they're just not looking in the right places, because we've asked nationals what were the platforms that they were using when they were looking for a job. And actually, the number one platform was social professional networks. So this is a perfect opportunity for employers to reach the right people through those platforms. And these people might not be looking for a job. Again, these people could be passive candidates. They're happy in their job, but if the right opportunity presented themselves, they would take it, and they could be interested in the role. So what can you do today to bridge this gap that we're seeing, at least from a candidate's perspective and in the labor market? There's a couple of things. First of all is optimizing your jobs. So whether you're posting them on your website, on a job board, or on LinkedIn, there's a couple of things that you can do to make sure that you're reaching the right people. First of all, start with using the right keywords. This is called SEO, or search engine optimization for the marketers out there. Basically, it means that the more keywords you're using in your job descriptions that are related to the skills you're looking for, the more candidates are likely to find you or find your job. So for example, if you're looking for a sales manager, you want to make sure that you're using words like people, managing, teamwork, collaboration, feedback, and obviously you need to mention commercial, sales, all of these technical words. Another thing that you should be looking out for is, and I hope that everyone is doing that, is to post all of your jobs online. So if you have jobs that are on newspapers or on magazines, you should move them online, because this is where people are looking for opportunities today. They type it in Google, and a couple of jobs popped up. And if your job is not online, then it's not going to show in their search. And finally, leveraging your employees. So these are the people that are going to be opening your job to all of their network. So we know that talent attracts talent, and that your employees are your best ambassadors, and they're your gateway to a pool of talent that you might not be able to reach. So make sure that your employees are sharing the jobs that you're posting online, whether it is through their social professional network or even by email through to a friend to recommend later on. Now, a second thing that is important, and that was actually highlighted by a lot of the nationals in the study, is the candidate experience. So making sure that you have a good candidate experience can really make or break your hiring. So a couple of things here to look out for is making sure that you're consistent throughout the journey, communicating with your people, the candidates, all from the beginning to the end of the process, and keeping them updated on their status of their application. Second is making sure that you clarify the job requirements. So we've heard this a lot, that sometimes it's not clear what is required, and then at the end of the process, you kind of have surprises as to what is expected from them. So we want to make sure that you are mentioning the right requirements and the skills that are needed for this job. And then finally, it's just making sure that you're aligned with the hiring managers and that you're having the same messages to different candidates. So we've covered the two first parts of the report. Now the third part is all about skills. So we really wanted to understand what were the skills that employers perceived as important and what were the ones that employees perceived as important. And actually, a recent study was ran with PwC last year, and it showed that 63% of CEOs worldwide say that availability of skills is a primary concern. So we all know that, and we've already talked about it in the first part about the US skills gap. So this exists everywhere in the world. So we wanted to focus on the interpersonal skills that are showing in the MENA region. So we didn't actually focus on the technical part, but we only looked at what are the skills that you need in a job, in your day-to-day work, rather than going into technical things. So let's look at, in different countries, what were the skills that were important for both employers and professionals. So in the UAE, as you can see in this graph, we're showing the importance of different types of interpersonal skills from an employer's perspective and a candidate's perspective, and the gap in between both. So employers in the UAE consider that having a multicultural experience and also a relevant technical expertise are skills that are very important. And not to say that candidates don't perceive it as important, but they're less likely to perceive it as important, let's say. So this is something that maybe candidates should pay more attention to. So having more relevant technical expertise and having multicultural experience, something that they can highlight in their CVs. For candidates, what's important is that having that strong analytical skills and those interpersonal and communication skills, these are things that actually candidates are highlighting when they're looking for a job. So sometimes employers might not be looking at that, but this is something that candidates are really trying to develop when they're finding or looking for a job. In the UAE, it's slightly different because employers are looking at the technical expertise. This is like the most important thing that they're looking at. So if you are an engineer, they want to know that you've worked in an engineering company and you've actually, hands-on can do what an engineering what engineering works requires you to do. On the other hand, what should employers look out for is a couple of things that professionals are developing. First is their educational background. So in Saudi, professionals are actually investing more in their education to make sure that they have the skills required, but also in the experience in the field. So not necessarily the technical experience, but any experience in the job market is something that candidates put forward when they're looking for a job opportunity. Finally, having a multicultural experience and creativity is very important for employers in Qatar. That is a very interesting one because I've never heard that before, where creativity is an important element, is an important skill to have. On the other hand, that's not the same for professionals. What they actually want, or what they actually offer, is the fluency in English and Arabic. So there's a need to have Arabic speakers, obviously, in all the world, in all the MENA region, But in Qatar particularly, this is what employees are offering or candidates are offering. And they're also trying to focus on their time management. So these are two things that employers should be looking out for when looking for candidates. But this is a vice versa a situation where also employees or candidates should be looking at what employers are looking for. So the multicultural experience and the creativity piece is something that they should be highlighting today when they're looking for a job. So I very quickly did cover the most important things in this survey. As I said, I was not going to go into details because you can have the full report later on. So you can download it and I'll share the link to do that. But what I wanted to finalize with is a couple of recommendations that you can start doing on LinkedIn. Because today, as we saw in the results, professionals are using that platform to find opportunities. And you're going to want to be on LinkedIn if you want to find the right people. So what are the 3 things that you can start doing on LinkedIn? They're pretty basic, and some of you might already been doing that, but I'm just going to cover it very quickly. So first of all is having a career page or a company page. So just having a presence on LinkedIn. This is important because it will help you showcase your company as a great place to work, and just being there and being visible to candidates, because they're going to look and they're going to search for your company, and this is where they're going to find and where they're going to land. So making sure that you're having the right content there and having the right messaging as to what it is to work in your company is very important. Second is to proactively look for candidates through the recruiter tool. So this is a corporate solution that we offer, and this helps you actually find passive talent, so people that are not necessarily looking for a job. So you proactively go ahead and find those people, and you filter through different ways so you can find exactly the person that you are looking for, whether they have the right skills or the right experience in the field, or they have multicultural experience. So all of these skills that were mentioned during that study, you can find through the recruiter tool if you are looking for these in particular. And then finally is advertising your job. So we did touch upon this before, and I actually want to make sure that everyone here knows that it's important to have your jobs online, and it's the best way to reach the numbers that you're looking for. But also, a job that is posted on LinkedIn is not posted to everyone in the network. It is going to be obviously available to everyone if they're actively searching, but it's going to be also posted to the right people. So LinkedIn, it has an algorithm that will only show the right job to the right person. So you won't be receiving hundreds of applications that are not relevant to you. With this, I've covered the takeaways, the key takeaways of the 10 Gap report, but if you'd like to get more details about the results, you can download the full report on the link you see here, and you can also download it through the same email that you've received to see this video. I hope this was useful for you and was short and sweet, and I hope that this will help you build your hiring strategy for your second half of the year. I'm going to leave you all to read the full report, I hope, and thank you for listening, and happy hiring.